In this video, we're going to look at simplifying radicals. There is a pattern to this. So if you look over on the left-hand side, you'll see that you've got the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. So really, it is the square root of 2 squared. But what is the square root, or what is 2 squared? Really, just 4. 3 times 3, the next one, would be 9. What's the square root of 9? 3. So what happens is when you guys square things like 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3, they're really pairs of things. So it doesn't really matter if you know what 7 times 7 is. You don't need to know that 7 times 7 is really 49. What you really need to know is that if you have 2 of them multiplied together, underneath that square root, it's just going to equal that value of 7. So over on the right-hand side, if you guys do the couple over there that are not finished for you, like square root of 5 times square root of 5, would be technically the square root of 25, which is just 5. The square root of 25, if you type that into your calculator, would be just 5 without the root over it. So what's the square root of 15 times 15? Doesn't matter what the actual value would be, we would know that it would just be 15 by itself. Square root of 20 times square root of 20, 52. Again, I do not know what 1,256 times 1,256 is off the top of my head. But I know that if you're multiplying two of the same thing together underneath the square root, when you take the square root of that number, you get 1,256. So finding the exact answer sometimes is important in real-world problems. So we are going to simplify radicals for those instances where that's the case. So something is simplified when there are no more perfect square roots inside or underneath the radical sign. So let's go down and simplify a couple of these. Now, if you don't know your perfect squares, it might be good to write them down. Maybe you only knew some of them, but I did write them down there in red for you guys. So 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. Those are your perfect squares up through 11. Most likely you won't need any larger than that to memorize. But when you're simplifying numbers, so like if you're simplifying the number 18, the square root of 18, what you guys want to check for is perfect squares. So since 18 is not larger than 25, it should be divisible by either 4, 9, or 16. So what is the highest perfect square that goes into 18? Well, that would be 4. No, not 4. That would be 9. 9 times 2. So since 9 is a perfect square, we can say the square root of 9 is 3. That's going to come out, and that square root of 2 is left then. So we're checking to see what numbers underneath that square root are divisible by perfect squares. So if you look at 80, if you guys have to guess and check, that's fine, but just start with the highest number, because if you don't take the highest perfect square that it's divisible by, then it might not be simplified. There might still be another one left. So if we're looking at 80, it's not going to be divisible by 64 or 49 or 36. It is divisible by 16. 16 times what? 16 times 5. So what is the square root of 16? 4. Square root of 5 is left. So when you actually take that square root, it is on the outside. You've taken the square root, so it's not under that root sign anymore. 3 times the square root of 98. So again, check to see what numbers, we'll worry about the 3 later, but what perfect squares go into 98. Again, if you have to check, divide it by 64, see if it goes evenly. Divide it by 49, see if it goes evenly. Divide it by 36. Whichever number goes evenly into it is what you want to use. So in this case, 98 is 49 times 2. What is the square root of 49? 7. So if you had that 3 out there already, guys, the square root of 49 is 7. It's coming outside there with that 3. So now you don't have 3 outside. You have 3 times 7 outside, which is 21. So we're just checking in each number value. We're finding the largest perfect square that goes into the number we're trying to simplify. So again, if you want to write down the perfect squares somewhere, that's fine. If you have them memorized, even better.